if we all agree to do one thing: share. Let's share our wisdom, share our time, share our talents, share our finances, but most of all, let's share our love. This is the Female Solution. Join me, Naima Latif, every morning, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, as we bring you stimulating discussions about the issues affecting our lives. If you're listening online at www.blogtalkradio.com/the-female-solution, press the blue button that says follow and get our daily topics every morning directly to your email and your smartphone. Hi, I'm Naima Latif, executive producer of the Female Solution radio show. We invite you to call in 515-605-9325 and participate in this daily think tank as we examine the challenges we face and develop solutions that restore peace and harmony. We are global transformers, changing the world from the way it is to the way it should be. We are one. Wherever we live on this earth, we are one human family. On behalf of our team of radio hosts, I'd like to extend a greeting to all the members of our family, whenever and wherever you may be listening around the world. To our family in China, Ni Hao. In India, Namaste. In Japan, Konnichiwa. In Korea, Annyeonghaseyo. In Russia, Здравствуйте. In Germany, Guten Tag. In Poland, Dzień dobry. In France, Bonjour. In Spain, Hola. In Italy, Ciao. In Egypt, Ahlan wa sahlan. In Ghana, Akwaba. In Nigeria, Peleo. In South Africa, Sawubona. In Senegal, Nangadef. In Kenya, Jambo. In Israel, Shalom. In Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Saudi Arabia, Assalamu alaikum. Greetings, and may peace be upon you all. What if you could live to be 120 years old and remain active, healthy, alert, and vibrant? Our bodies are made up of cells that are constantly rejuvenating. So if we take proper care of ourselves, we can literally defy aging. Join us every Tuesday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Standard Time to learn about self-care from Susan Essentials on the Female Solution Blog Talk Radio Show. Learn how to help your body and your cells feel rejuvenated each day through proper nutrition, sleep, frequency medicine, and many unconventional methods of self-care. I'm Jody Susan. Join me and my amazing guests by calling in at 515-605-9325 and press 1 to speak. We'll help you achieve a breakthrough in your health today.
Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the show. This is Jody Susan with Susan Essentials, and the show is the Blog Talk Radio Female Solution Self-Care. Is that a mouthful or what? I'm just going to say. So I'm really excited that we have two amazing guests today, Dr. Jeff Wright and Jeremy Evans of Pure Maintenance out of Utah. Jeremy has generously stepped in for Mike Adams, who is the founder, but Jeremy has been with the founder for quite some time. I'll let him tell you the story. So let me bring them on. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
How are you?
Fantastic.
Yeah, we're doing great.
Yeah, so, Mike had some travel issues, actually, this morning.
Yeah.
And Jeremy, thank you so much for coming on board and joining the show.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And I think I replied to you guys last night, going, all transparency, we didn't have internet. So, so it's not what happens to you in life, right? It's how you manage it. So,
Right.
All right. So
How you respond. Yep.
yeah, it's how you respond to it or react.
Mm-hmm.
And so today we are going to chat about how mold makes you feel. We're going to talk about how it's usually present in our homes. I know I had it in several of my homes and had health effects because of it. And Dr. Wright is going to talk about, I think, about how it makes you feel and solutions. And Jeremy is going to talk about, the testing and how you get rid of it. I've gotten rid of it in my home using pure maintenance. So really grateful, right, to have access to the technology. So is that, we have some tracking. Do we know what, on my end or on, there's some crackling. So let's see if we can, we'll see what we can do here. So let's start with the testing. Jeremy, what is one test to better understand whether or not you have mold in your home?
So it is crackling a bit, but you were asking about what does testing look like for mold in the home?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What does the testing look like? Start with that, because you can't handle what you don't know, right?
Yeah, and that's a tricky question. There are several mold testing methods that have been developed over the years, and I think Dr. Wright will agree that most of them are horrible. They're not very good, and there's lots of reasons why that's the case. But the most popular method, and maybe the best thing we have, is called an air quality test. So what that looks like, every mold remediator will have a air pump, an air sampler that they can bring in a home, and basically it's got a cassette you stick in it, and in that cassette there's a little sticky, a little slag with some sticky on it, and as you suck in air for usually 5 to 10 minutes, that sticky capture particulates, including
so you are cutting out.
Send that off to the lab.
Hold on, you're cutting out. I'm not sure why. We're having some technical issues.
Yeah.
Try. Let me mute. I'm going to mute. Go ahead. Try talking now, Jeremy.
You're Dr. Wright.
No, it's not. So it's not Dr. Wright, who's maybe it's mine. Go ahead and speak. I'm going to mute my phone and go ahead and describe that again, okay? Okay. All right. Are you there, Jeremy?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. We are. There we go.
I can't hear you actually very well. It's
Okay.
quite broken up. Can you hear Dr. Wright? Okay.
Dr. Wright, you want to say something for us?
Well, good morning, and it's a beautiful day here, and happy to talk about mold and symptoms and things you can do about it to help get it out of you. And it's a great honor to be here with you and your audience and your listeners, and so.
Thank you. So I'm not sure where the crackling's coming from, but hopefully we'll be able to get that to work shortly. So why don't we start with this? So someone wants to talk to me about the testing that they think works. I have, which one would you like to discuss? Which one would like to talk about the testing?
I defer that to Jeremy because he does a lot of the testing. So,
okay.
My opinion is based on results from humans. So until Jeremy can get on and voice his opinion, my view is sick people, and so ultimately, I want the test that's going to tell us what is best. And so there's multiple tests out there. I start with, if you've had water damage, there's probably mold in your house. And it would be good to get tested, but you also need to clean up the water damage. Because tests, even medical tests, are not 100% ever. Anything that's 100%, usually you start scratching your head and going, are you sure there's no error there? So there's a number of different.
100%. So what do you mean? What do you mean? No test is 100%?
Well, all tests have a slight margin of error. The really good tests will have a slight margin of error because they have to compare it to something. For example, there's an ERMI test that's out there that says we're testing for the top 20 bad molds. Well, that's good, but what if it's one of the not bad molds that's affecting you? So there's error in it. Or if you don't do the test correctly, you'll get error in it. Mold typically is heavy, so it sits on surfaces. So if you're doing an air testing, you may not get a good sampling because it's on the surface, not necessarily in the air.
Got it. Okay. And so when patients come to see you, and they're symptomatic, what are the symptoms that show up when you have mold toxicity?
Well, it's easiest to say pretty much anything, but I'm going to be a little bit more specific. Classically, you might see the symptoms be something in the lungs or the sinuses or the eyes, like sinus congestion or allergies or asthma or tearing up or blurred vision, red eyes. But non-classically, what you might not think of would be, if it hits your digestive system, you might get upset stomach or bloating or diarrhea, or your appetite might change, or you may have extreme thirst, or your nervous system might get hit. Maybe you've got some vertigo or some tremors or some tingling or shocks. I talked with a patient yesterday who was getting electric shocks into her feet.
Wow.
Headaches can be a symptom. A metallic taste. It can give you a case of the stupids, meaning you can't think or process very well. You can't find words.
The stupids. I'm just kidding.
You might get angry all the time. You might get anxiety, or you might not be able to focus, or you might have memory loss. It might hit your musculoskeletal system, and you might be super tired, or you might have body aches and pains, or cramps, or unusual pain. If you worked out and are sore, you earned it. That's what we expect. But if you hurt and you don't know why, or if you're getting some swelling or stiff joints or body aches, any of those symptoms in any of those systems could be a sign of mold. It's easier to say, well, gosh, anything that's nondescript could potentially be mold.
Well, yeah, but I also think, that we're exposed to more mold than what we realize. And I don't want to say like everyone should be like freaked out about that they're exposed to mold every day, but we pretty much are. And my tower garden just went off. So, so let me turn off my tower garden. But while I am, why don't you share with people about what you do to help them and to identify this? Okay.
Well, usually by the time people find me, they've already seen somewhere between 5 and 15 doctors.
Wow.
They become a specialist who's looking for the cause of the problem, and I'm not necessarily looking for the diagnosis only per se. I'm looking for the cause of the diagnosis. So by the time people find me, my intake, I ask them questions that would tip me off to mold. And, they might come in with 5 or 15 or more diagnoses, and some, they're probably valid, some may be off, meaning the doctor wasn't sure what they were looking at, and so they called it the best that they could. So I'll spend quite a while taking a very thorough history to figure out what's going on. And I had for example, I had a family come in, and the son was, mom was in a wheelchair, and the son was flunking out of high school, but he loved school. He just couldn't think. And so taking a thorough history, went back 4 years, and it all seemed cleared. And they had a massive flood in their house. And so I turned to the mom and said, well, how long have you been in that wheelchair? As a doctor, you can ask crazy questions like that.
Well,
so
right.
How long have you been in that wheelchair? And she said, about 4 years. Turns out their house, even though they got remediation, which I think was appropriate, they didn't kill off the mold. They just removed all the damage. And so the mold was still in the beds, in the carpet, in everywhere. And and each member of the family had a different set of symptoms. 2 of the other kids had mental emotional symptoms. Mom was so exhausted she couldn't walk, and so she was in a wheelchair to help her get from point A to point B. Dad was having blood sugar imbalances and heart problems. So ultimately, it took a lot of work to get that family well, and part of that included peer maintenance work.
So, and let me just do this. Hold on a second. I'm going to have Jeremy call into the radio show instead, okay, so that he can also speak to this. So, Jeremy, if you're listening, check your text message. I just sent you the guest call-in phone number. So that, because his mic is being kind of funky. So, here's the thing. First of all, let me just kind of reiterate what you said. You get all these kind of symptoms, aches and pains, can't focus. I basically lived on the floodplain. That was my life until I moved. So, and I think that it's important to note that if you're not feeling optimal, which I think can vary from person to person about what that looks like, right? Because people have what we call their normal. Mm-hmm. But let me just state this, for the world, you should be able to process in a way that it's not a struggle. Mm-hmm. And there are tests that are done to assess your ability to process.
Yes.
I know that because it was done for me. Mm-hmm. So when the thing is, what people are experiencing, I think, may be very common, but it may not be normal.
Yes.
Okay. So, and hold on, I'm just going to check to see if we have Jeremy calling in yet, but it doesn't look like it. Looks like he says it didn't go through. So what I'm going to, and I can't seem to take him on. So I'm going to chat with our executive producer to see if she can support getting Jeremy into the call. So hold on a second. But while we're doing that, so tell me about the story. And Mike Adams is the founder of Pure Evidence. And tell me the story about how the two of you met, because I think it's pretty interesting what your patient did. You want to go ahead with that?
Yeah, happy to.
Okay.
So, like I said, I work with some very complicated conditions, people who happen to have some very complicated conditions. And I have a patient that, back up a little bit. When I learned about mold in school, it was basically treat symptomatically. And then when I got further education on treatment of mold, it looked like you have to tell the patients to leave naked and never go back. Basically, they have to leave everything in the house and can call it a total loss, and in order to get themselves well. And both of those never sat well with me. I don't want to tell people to leave naked, and I don't want to have to tell people that, well, we're just going to treat this symptomatically for the rest of your existence, which both never did seem to fit. So I had a patient who had a lot of stuff going on, and as part of the conversation, she said, oh, there's this company, they did an amazing thing for me. You've got to meet them. I'm going to set it up for you. And I was rolling my eyes thinking, well, first of all, they're going to poison the patient with some sort of toxic chemical. And then second, I'm going to have to detox them and get the chemical out so that they're not being poisoned. But she was raving, and I figured, well, why not? So enter her with Mike. And they're sitting in my office, and he's telling me that they created a system to sterilize hospitals and ORs and so on. They came in with this stuff that they make clean rooms out of that are sterile. Okay, that sounds good, but how are you not going to poison the person while you're cleaning up their environment? And he told me a little bit about the chemistry, and I like chemistry because it tells me how stuff works. And it was effectively just peroxide of vinegar mixed in a specific way such that it recycles itself, but it kills everything. I thought, wow, okay, that's not going to hurt me. And that's not going to hurt my patients either. Okay, so with the starving fan and conversation with Mike, I hesitantly started referring them out to my patients who I thought had mold. This is before I knew about all the testing and so on.
Right.
Like if you had water damage, there's a high probability you have mold if you didn't clean it up like that day. Most people don't clean it up that day. And so for the next 6 months to a year, patient after patient after patient says, wow, I feel so much better. Wow, I can't believe how much my health has improved since having them fog. It was just, there were no negative reviews. They just came back, and I like to read science. I like to read research. It tells me what I want to know. But if a patient comes back and says they got well, and it consistently happens, I have to say there's more here. So I then became a stark raving fan myself, professionally speaking. I had a little water flood at my house, and I knew enough about mold to know that I wasn't going to mess with it. And so I had a crew come in and demolition everything that was damaged, and then I had pure maintenance come in and fog. And after the fogging, my wife walked in and said, oh, I feel so much better in our house now. Then I became a personal fan of the fogging, as well as a professional fan. So that's how I got involved. And then for the next 10 or so years, I continued to refer people to them.
10 years.
Or so, yeah.
10 years. That's a long time.
Yes.
So yeah. Yeah. And here's the thing. I'm an empath. My body's very, very sensitive, ultra sensitive to everything around, right? Mm-hmm. People's energy, toxins, chemicals, one and the same. Well, actually toxicants and toxins are different, actually. Toxins are in nature, if I understand it correctly, and toxicants are made by man. So, and put into nature. Oops. Mm-hmm. So I could, when our house was dry fog by pure maintenance, I could feel the difference immediately walking in. It was like fresh air. My lungs were thanking me. My nose, my eyes were thanking me. Mm-hmm. So I actually have a caller, and I think I know who it is. It's our executive producer, and she actually has a situation that I'm hoping you guys can help her with. So hold on one second. So 312-849, we're going to bring you on the call. And we're also going to see if we can get Jeremy in this time. So let's see. So welcome to the Blog Talk Radio, the Female Solution Self-Cell Care. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Yes, this is Naima.
Hi.
And, wow. I'm so glad your guest is talking about this. Now, I I'm listening and I'm realizing that I've had some symptoms for a long time, maybe over the last couple of years. Well, my home is set up in the basement of my home, which floods every now and then. And, some of maybe the furniture, some of the wood furniture, bookcases and things like that, they've been a little water soaked for a period of time where mold could grow. I don't know what surfaces mold grows on, but it's possible. And
it grows on anything, Naima.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Well, it's possible to be that. Now I have, and my daughter keeps telling me, don't, because I have a bed down here too. So I work very late. So often I'll sleep down here as well. And I've been in a very deep depression for maybe the last 2 years. And it's like my brain also isn't working. Sometimes I can't think straight. I'll go into very deep fatigue in the middle of the day. And it's just, I feel like this brain fog. I didn't know what it was. I thought, well, maybe it's an aging thing. Maybe I need to do more mind exercises or whatever. But then I couldn't pull my mood up a lot of times. And so I'm thinking, all this could be biological. And it could be from being down in this environment so many hours out of the day and sleeping down here. And, I just went through another episode of cleaning after my water heater burst and left water all over the place. I've been cleaning that. And, that could have created a situation with mold. I don't know, but definitely have experienced some of the symptoms that you're talking about, and it's been quite a while. And so I'm wondering, what I should do. I don't know if I need to get tested or, start some type of treatment, but it really, it's really been a struggle over the last couple of years, addressing the deep depression. And
that's real.
Now,
I mean,
like a light bulb went on. This might be biological.
Well, epigenetics, right, Dr. Wright?
Yes.
So I'm going to let Dr. Wright take the lead on this, Naima. Epigenetics is about our body's response, and you may define it better. Actually, you probably will, but our body's response or reaction actually to the environment around us.
Yes, I would agree with that. I would also add that everybody assumes, well, I got the gene, I'm going to get the disease, and that's not true. We live in Utah West, and so guns are a thing. So I'm going to use a gun analogy, but effectively your genes are like a gun. But if you don't load the gun, then the gun is not, it's a piece of metal. It's a paperweight. It's something you can, use as a hammer or whatever. It's useless unless you load it. And then once you load it, you can either do good or ill. You can do good things with it, or you can do terrible things with it. And your genes are the same way. And epigenetics is how those genes are turned on or off. And typically epigenetics and the genes are turned off based on your environment, what you eat, what you smell, what you live in, just life. And so to speak to you about that, I ask you just ponder on this for a second. If you go on vacation for an extended amount of time, do you feel differently? And that's one of the questions I ask my patients is if you leave your house, they go, oh yeah, we went to Disneyland for a week and a half. I felt great. Well, okay, maybe you felt great because you, went to Disneyland and you're having fun with your family. Or it could be that you were out of your environment and causing problems. And so, go camping for a while, for a minute, a couple of days and see how you feel. That's a cheap, easy way to see. There's certainly testing that you can do. Like I said earlier, testing is not 100%. And so when I see complicated cases, complicated health concerns, I'm less concerned about what does the test say and more lining up the test with the history and the symptoms to get, the cause of the problem. And if you've had multiple floods in your house and you're having all these symptoms, that's two things that kind of make an X that says, take a strong look at mold and figure it out. And then testing, while I'm waiting for Jeremy to come on and talk about testing, there's a couple of ways you can proceed with testing. Number one, you can have your house tested. Now, usually they do air testing, but air testing is inadequate because air testing isn't looking at stuff that's heavy that follows the law of gravity, which means falls to the ground. So you have to do some sort of testing that includes wiping and or blowing that up so that it can be caught in the air. You need to be doing the testing in the area where you live, so you know kind of what you're dealing with. There's also, it has to be run by medical professionals, but there's also lab testing that can be done, and it's a urine test that will look for mycotoxins from the mold. 10, 12 years ago when I first started learning about mold, that didn't exist. And so you just had to, shoot from the hip and say, I think this is a problem, let's pursue it. And so the couple labs that do urinary testing, they're looking for specific mycotoxins from specific molds. Again, they're looking for very specific things, so you may or may not find it, but at least it'll give you a direction. And if it is one of the more common toxic molds, like say penicillinum or Stachybotrys or one of those, then it'll show up and you can do something about it. Now, looking at the genetics, like Jody said, some people have genetics that make it very difficult for them to release mold. Other people don't have those genetics, which doesn't mean they won't get sick. It just means it'll take longer for them to get sick, and they won't be as sick as somebody who has it.
Point on. It will take longer for them to get sick.
Yep.
People always tell me, because one of the things, one of the things that I do because of my health journey, right, going from being a bodybuilder to, nearly sick or very sick and nearly dead, to health. I now offer to people all the things that help me to reclaim my health or maintain my health, right? Which is why Pure Maintenance is on the show, because it was part of maintaining and reclaiming. And so here's the thing. One of the other things I offer is these water filtration systems. It takes out like 220 different contaminants, leaves in the minerals. And people say to me, well, it hasn't killed me yet. And I'm like, okay. Just because I'm the canary in the coal mine and I am a faster responder or reactor doesn't mean it's not happening to your body. The human body is the human body, and I think it might be fairly accurate, but we don't even become symptomatic, most of us, until we lose 60%, like 60 to 80% of the function of that particular organ. Is that right, Dr. Wright?
Yeah, I think that's accurate. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if it's your heart, it's 100%. So you don't really want to wait, right? Just saying, like, just because it hasn't killed you yet.
Well, if killing you is your yardstick, why do you want to wait till you're dead before you figure out what's causing it? And,
right?
And let's just look at some of the mental emotional symptoms. If you're getting depressed or you're confused or you can't focus or you can't remember, first of all, there's a long road before that turns into Alzheimer's, if it turns into Alzheimer's. But the reality is what about loss of wages? What about loss of jobs? What about loss of relationships? What does that cost? All that has a cost to it. And so, yeah, but I'd rather die quickly rather than die slowly, piece by piece by piece.
Man, we have to go to commercial. So let me just stop us there. We'll come back. And I think Jeremy's working with Naima to get us, get Jeremy back on. So. Hi, I'm Jody Susan with Susan Essentials. I started Susan Essentials in 2015 because of a personal health journey. I was over-medicated and put on 19 different medications. And yes, I reversed all my chronic diseases using plant and energy-based healing. It was amazing. At Susan Essentials, we support both consumers and businesses, and we do that with helping your employees or yourself
with a food as medicine mindset. How Susan Essentials supports businesses and consumers is we teach people about a food as medicine mindset. So we support people on how to support their own immune system, how to support their brain health, how to support their emotional well-being. And we do that all with plant and an energy-based healing.
Okay, got it.
Oh man, God sent the monthly sun bill today. This sunlight is really expensive, especially during this season. I'll probably have to work overtime to pay it.
Well, you better pay it on time. We don't want the sun to go out and we're sitting up here all day in the dark.
Wouldn't it be terrible if God charged us for sunlight? Well, thank God, the light and heat from the sun is free. So why are we paying such high bills for the energy we use in our homes? Because we don't know how to use solar energy, the free energy from the sun. You can convert your regular home to a solar energy home and save tremendously on your electric bill. Take a look at your electric bill. Wouldn't you like to reduce or possibly even eliminate that cost altogether? Let one of our solar consultants show you how. Call today, 312-849-3456, and schedule a free consultation. That's 312-849-3456.
With a simple blood test and food plan, Susan Essentials will help your business, your family, and you eliminate toxins and create a step-by-step plan to nourish your mind, body, and spirit. Click here to learn more.
All right, we are back. And it looks like we may have Jeremy on the switchboard. I'm just waiting for Naima to text me back. Or Naima, do you have Jeremy on the switchboard? Let's see. I'm just going to test this. I'm going to add Jeremy to the stream. Jeremy, let's give this a shot. How you doing, Jeremy?
Good.
Yeah. Oh,
All
and
right.
that we're missing.
That sounds great. Woohoo!
Finally.
Woo-hoo. See,
I
we
switched
are the
devices. I switched
yeah, and
internet.
you got the king and queen of removing interferences right here. So
There you go.
he does it from one standpoint. I did it energetically, and then of course
Exactly.
you had Naima supporting in yourself as well. So there you go.
Exactly.
So it's all good. It's like I said, we're just rolling along and making things happen.
Yeah.
So I think it was really interesting what we were talking about, Dr. Jeff, Dr. Wright, that people, what are you waiting for? Are you losing your relationships? Are you losing your job? Your focus, your ability to say the word losing,
Mhm.
That's a symptom, right?
Mhm.
I'm typically shocked, and I usually try to keep myself in check about that. Like, what are you waiting for to reclaim your health?
Mhm.
Yeah. So, Jeremy, your uncle is Mike Adams, right?
Yes.
First of all, thank you so much for stepping in.
Yeah. Pleasure.
To share about peer maintenance and stepping in on Mike's behalf. And one of the things that I failed to do this morning, since we had all these technology issues, is and forgive me, throw a grace card if you will, I didn't do proper introductions. So if you would be so kind, the both of you, and to do an introduction about yourself, that would be lovely, if you don't mind. Dr. Wright, since you've been talking all this time, why don't we tell the listening public who you are? You have an amazing background, and then Jeremy, go ahead and talk about your amazing background and like that.
Well, I have a doctor of naturopathic medicine, which means I went to 4 years of medical school. And for those who aren't aware of what that is, it sounds natural, and it is. For the first 2 years in medical school, you learn how stuff works and how stuff breaks. So the first year is how stuff is supposed to work: anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, and so on. The second year is how stuff breaks. You get pathology and all the different ologies of how things are breaking in that. And then in medical school, you go to 2 more years of clinical rotations in hospitals. That's your standard MD or DO. In my training, I had the first 2 years, but in the third and fourth year, instead of working in a hospital, I was working in a clinical setting, as well as having 20 to 25 extra hours of coursework in addition to the clinical setting. And then I graduated, had a residency. And so the training, my training is very similar in that we learn pathology and how things break and how to diagnose and how to run a lab test to figure out what's wrong and how to read it. And then in addition to learning how to prescribe medications, which save lives, I'm a huge fan, and or doing surgery, it's also learning about nutrition, how to rebuild the body, and a lot of other techniques, herbs or essential oils or whatever it is. So ultimately, the foundation is whatever works is the best medicine for the individual. I tend to, and
do you agree though that, so being that I was over medicated for 19 years, or almost 2 decades,
mm-hmm.
Would you agree that medication, and you can disagree, by the way,
mm-hmm.
I look at medication today as should be used, let's say allopathic Western medication for
mm-hmm.
acute situations, and then supported with plants for the long term.
I would agree and disagree all on that. The allopathic model, or the modern medicine model, is based on acute care. When drugs first came out, half the people who got pneumonia died. That's a pretty steep statistic. Enter penicillin, and all of a sudden we can give a pill or a shot, and people didn't die. That's awesome. Everybody was pretty excited about that. And that's evolved into what we have today. I'm a huge fan of medicine because it works really well for acute care. Doctors are trained for acute care. The problem therein lies is that now we're trying to take that model and apply it to chronic disease.
Right.
Drugs don't work very well for chronic disease. Now, if somebody's chronically ill and it's life-threatening, they need something really powerful to pull them back from death or whatever it is they're dealing with. But drugs don't bestow health. Health is bestowed by eating live things and doing things that support health: exercise, sleep, drinking clean water, breathing clean air. And so there needs to be a merging of the two. If you're so acute that something bad's going to happen, let's use a drug to pull you back from the brink of destruction. And in the meantime, let's pick hypertension. Your blood pressure is so high, I'm worried about you having a stroke tomorrow. So let's get you on the appropriate medication that's going to help you not have that stroke tomorrow. And in the meantime, let's integrate lifestyle habits that are going to take some time, days, weeks, months, or potentially years, that are going to pull you back from that so that then you can wean off the medication. They blend very well together if you're willing. But the rub is that our system isn't designed for taking the time to be able to do that. And so that's why the experts like me are there, is so you can see your family doctor for the acute things that are going to help you to not die or not have a really bad outcome. And then you work with somebody like Jody or me, or a healer, or somebody who can help you build from the foundation up. So that you cannot need that medication, you can wean off of it. Because doctors, they're really trying to do good work. It's just that they see that you have aches and pains. Oh, that might be fibromyalgia. Gee, we don't really have anything that works for that. So let's give you some anti-inflammatories to help you not ache and pain. Oh, and you're depressed about that. So let's give you some medicine to help you to not care and not be depressed about that.
Oops. That's
Yeah.
what that looks like.
Yeah.
Right? That's what that looks like. Doesn't even look like me, does it?
No, I can see you in there.
Somewhere.
But you look better now.
So Jeremy, and I want to come back to you, Dr. Wright, because I have some more questions. And Jeremy, tell me about how you got involved with peer maintenance and what you do today and all those good things.
So, back, I think it was 2007, I had just graduated from college. I actually moved back near my parents. And so it's actually a story of my Uncle Mike. He was working at the time doing facility maintenance. So he'd kind of oversee the health of facilities. And my dad actually worked with a company called Marcor that had created this new dry fog technology that they were using mostly at the time, marketing it for clean room disinfection and sterilization. And anyways, Mike at the time was he even had some medical, it was a surgical center that he was in charge of. And so Mike thought, instead of wiping this thing down with a spray bottle and a towel, perhaps this dry fog technology where you essentially, I don't like the word fumigate because it scares people, but you essentially fumigate the whole space.
Well, you're fogging it, right?
You're fogging it again with the dry fog, and not only does it get every part of a surface, it gets anything airborne, it gets anything on the ceiling, it gets, we run it through the venting system. So it turned into a much more comprehensive sterilization treatment. Well, for various reasons, the medical setting didn't take off like we thought. I was home from college, so I still remember we did, back then pathogens weren't a big deal, like, viruses and things like that. But I remember doing a sterilization at the local jail here with Mike back then because they had an outbreak of something in the jail and they were all living close together. Well, that evolved into, things weren't working out great there. So I actually still remember the first mold job. It was Mike and I as well here locally. We decided to explore mold because the product we use is a viricide, bactericide, and a fungicide. And we weren't focusing on the fungicide, but we tried it residentially, which I think I'm positive we're the first company to take such a process and such a treatment method residentially. And so we started doing mold. And actually, because I missed out the first half of the podcast. I kind of missed if Dr. Wright shared the story, but there's kind of a neat story where Mike and perhaps my dad met with Dr. Wright because we started doing mold and things. So I'll have Dr. Wright share that. But basically, I went back to grad school, came back, and I basically managed the Utah operations here locally, where the original company started. And Mike is caught up in setting licenses up throughout the country. In fact, he's out in Missouri right now, had a bunch of flight issues and delays, and that's why he...
So I hope he's sleeping right now is really what I hope.
I talked to him right before, and he's like, I got 2 hours of sleep, and I'm on the road again. So he apologizes big time. But basically, I mean, it's taken off in the last 3 years. I think we've added at least 130 offices throughout the US, the UK, and Canada just in the last 3 years. It's taken off as a real big health business. And as Dr. Wright and I can share a bunch of stories too about how people, I'd say every month just here locally, I'm getting a couple, 2-3 people who are saying, wow, I feel so much better. I can breathe, or this went away. I just talked to a lady last night who, she was waking up 25 times a night with mucus and had to blow her nose. And she's like, I'm filling up my wastebasket every night. So actually, Mike and I fogged this one. He doesn't fog too much with me anymore here locally because he's always gone. But this one was, anyways, we did it together. And she called me. She was excited just last night. And she's like, I maybe wake up one time, maybe twice max. And she's like, I can't tell you how much of a difference it's making. And that's very common to hear testimonials like that. Like I said, I get it 2 or 3 months.
Exciting. Yeah, I mean, that showed up for me too. We actually have a caller, so let's see what they have to say. We're going to take the call, 773-221. If you want to, here. Good morning. This is Jody Susan with Self Cell Cares. What's your name?
Yes,
And
Nelson.
I'm sorry.
I'm Andrew Nelson.
Hi, Andrew.
Nelson,
How are
Chicago.
you? Do you have a question for our callers
I'm
about
doing
mold?
Yes, Mike Adams, the health ranger. That's the nephew of Mike Adams, the health ranger.
So yeah, I do know Mike Adams, the health ranger, and that's what I thought too first. No, but he could be called the health ranger, and I know who Mike Adams, the health ranger is. But you know, because that's when my friend Dave Suki, who I went to grade school with, he has a license here in Illinois, and he's the one who did my home. He said it's Mike Adams, and I go, the health ranger. But I do think, I'm just saying, we need to honor Mike Adams with a special name, like the health ranger. But no, it's not.
I've been trying to get in contact with Natural News Mike Adams, the health ranger, forever. And I was at my church on day before yesterday, and I want our pastor to broadcast the Science Agenda to Exterminate Blacks documentary, facilitated entirely by Mike Adams, the health ranger. And I want to encourage Mike Adams, the health ranger, that all these black churches, I want them to broadcast his documentary. And I think that would be a great encouragement to him. The World Health Organization came out with the International Certificate of Vaccination or Prophylaxis.
So we're going to not talk about vaccinations today because we don't want to get kicked off the air. So,
I know.
I'm just going to stop the call.
I'm just saying prophylaxis. It's just something that the World Health Organization came out with. I came up with an electronic version for that, and it seems as though everyone is expected to either take the V word or a prophylaxis.
So do you have a question regarding the topic today, Andrew?
Yes. May I have the contact information of Mike Adams' nephew?
Sure. Why don't you go ahead, Mike, Jeremy, if you want to send me the information to share, and we can post it, or you can tell us verbally, whichever. How do they get in touch with you at Pure Maintenance in Utah?
If it's Utah, just puremaintenanceut.com is our website, and that'll be the phone number. If you want.
PREM. You want to give a phone number too?
801-513-3364. That's kind of our main line. That could connect you to anything you wanted to know, even the nationwide programs. So, but puremaintenance.com without the UT is where you find information about. If you scroll down to the bottom of the website, there's a map, and you can click on your state and find information about your local Pure Maintenance. So,
all right. Thank you. Any other questions regarding mold, Andrew?
Well, the prophylaxis should be decent housing pursuant to the National Reparations Referendum, primarily for African American descendants of chattel slavery. And so that should be what people should opt for by way of being able to travel with their ICVP electronic.
Is this related to mold? I'm sorry. I'm not following.
Yes, it actually is.
Okay, help me understand.
Because if we're to shelter in place, we need to shelter in our own homes that are mold-free and cleaned up, as opposed to a hospital bed with a respirator in New York City about to die. Compliments of outgoing New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. You see what I'm saying?
All right.
It's all connected.
Yeah, no, I understand. Well, thank you so much for calling. Okay, so let's go back to so you guys have great stories to share about how you've helped people. Jeremy, you were sharing some stories. Dr. Wright, you were sharing some stories. tell me, here's the thing. I think that it's important for people to understand that they have a choice in the matter about, and that they don't have to live this way. So, Dr. Wright, what do you see as like what comes up like when and we have to go to commercial in 4 minutes, just so you know.
Nice.
But what comes up when you're talking to your patients or over the decades that you have committed to helping people reclaim their health?
That's a broad question. What comes up?
Well, relative to the mold situation, and what stops people from, I'd like to look at the psychological aspect of it a little bit if you're comfortable. The psychological, what is it that stops people from doing them, from reclaiming their health, taking those steps?
Probably the single most important thing that stops people is money.
You think?
Yeah. They don't, either they don't have the money or it's not covered by insurance, so therefore they can't do it because it's not covered by insurance. That's a psychological block, because why would you let a third party dictate what you can and can't do? A lot of these things that help people get well are not covered by insurance. Health is not covered by insurance.
No.
Disease care is covered by insurance.
Right.
So I'd say that's the single biggest block for people, is like, why? I can't afford that. Like, well, what are you costing? What are you spending in suffering? How much are you spending in doctor visits and downtime? And so I'd say that's the single biggest thing. Second thing is when you don't have a mind because mold has attacked your immune system, your nervous system, it's really hard to think through. And so the systems have to be relatively simple and straightforward in order to be able to be done. I want to give honor to the guy who wrote the mold protocol. It's Dr. Richie Shoemaker. He's treated 7,000 plus patients. His website is survivingmold.com. I learned much of what I know starting with him. He's kind of the one who figured out all the physiology of what was going on with mold toxicity and mold poisoning. When I saw that, it answered the question of why that 5 or 10% who didn't get well with the appropriate therapy, why they didn't get well. And so it was really eye-opening for me.
Why didn't they get well?
Because you're not treating the problem. The people didn't get well because we were managing their depression with antidepressant therapies, whether it was herbs or nutrition or medications or whatever, but they weren't getting well because we weren't addressing the reason why they were depressed in the first place. There's lots more related to that, but and so people need, when they can't think, it needs to be simple. I simplified it in my own practice for my patients to start with mold, you need to do two things. You need to do them absolutely. Number one, you need to get out of it, meaning you can't get exposed. And so I said earlier, I used to have to tell people, look, you have to leave naked and never go back, because that's the only way you're truly going to heal. I didn't like that piece of advice, but that was what I had to tell people, because how else do you get away from mold? And if it's in your clothing, it's still in your clothing. And if it's in your bed, it's still in your bed, and you can't get that out. Having a meeting with Mike Adams altered that thought of, okay, you can get out of it by fogging your house. But some people I recommend that they have to go through and remove anything that's been damaged as well. That's what we had to do. Mm-hmm. Not everybody has to do that.
Not anymore. Yeah.
No, because the fogging in many cases, the fogging takes care of that without that. But that's still on the list of consideration. You might need to do that. So number one, you have to get out of it. Mm-hmm. And number two, you have to get it out of you.
Right.
Because if you get out of it, but you happen to have the genetics where you're recycling the mycotoxins, your body's getting more and more inflamed, and you're not getting out of it because it's in you now. Your body is having a hard time getting rid of it. So therefore, you could have mold causing problems for many decades ago, 30, 40 years ago, and not even know it, because this is business as usual for you.
Right. Going back to it's your normal, but it's really not that common. Right. So I'm going to be toggling back and forth between the two of you. I want to mention, because I don't think that the listening public understands the capacity of the fogging. Jeremy, can you talk about how the fogging gets into the walls and the furniture and your clothing and the washer and the dryer and the dishwasher? Because I think that people think old school, right? Which is you have to pull everything out. Can you share about what that looks like when somebody comes back? What's been touched in their house?
Yeah, sure. And I might just preface it by saying that there have been foggers in the mold remediation industry for many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a challenge I deal with daily, trying to explain that what we do is not what you may think it is based on your previous experience with foggers. In fact, I talk to, we work with traditional mold remediators quite a bit. And they're like, oh, fogging, no, that doesn't work. But they're more thinking of a sprayer that you go around and.
Oh, I say, why do they say that? So they're confusing spraying with fogging.
Yes, and a lot of the foggers produce, again, it's kind of a mist. It's big droplets. It's moist, and you can put it in a room and fill up a room, or they'll spray it just on the infected areas of mold. We talk about dry fog. So the difference is we talk about dry fog. I mean, on the surface, that's important because when I fill your home full of this really powerful fungicide that maybe Dr. Wright can talk about is extremely safe as well.
We did. No worries.
Yeah.
And for people who just tuned in right now, it's super safe.
Yeah.
I'm the canary in the coal mine. Not only did I live through it, but I thrived through it. Okay, so go for it.
Yeah. So, I mean, dry, yeah, we don't want anything to get wet in your house, or, we don't want to soak your house. So the dry is really helpful in that regard. But really what we've learned over the years, because we dove into this it was divine providence. We had no clue what we were doing in the beginning. And it was a lot of trial and error before it took us a couple of years to come up with a really viable way to treat mold in homes using this technology. But the magic of it really is when you produce a dry fog, you basically, I mean, we have big compressors in our trucks that are providing a lot of air pressure, and it's producing a really, really fine particle. I mean, extremely small, so small that when it comes off, it feels dry. I mean, it doesn't feel like it's getting your hand wet. Well, what happens is because the droplet is so small, evaporation happens really quickly. And when evaporation happens, it just turns into this vapor. So it's called the vapor phase change that happens pretty quickly so if I'm downstairs fogging or upstairs fogging and someone starts downstairs, I'm smelling the fog within a couple of minutes and I haven't seen any fog. It's a very pervasive vapor that we produce. And in fact, I like calling it a vapor treatment sometimes more than a fog treatment, just to clarify. But
a vapor. And I'm going to share a screen real quick so that the viewing audience can see this. So this is pure maintenance. Is this a good screen?
Yeah.
To show, right?
That's good to see. Yeah, that's a good visual of how thick it really gets in the home. Yeah. And so that fog and those vapors, they are so small, much smaller. The vapors especially are much smaller than a mold spore. So the fog and the vapors really get into furniture really well, carpets. On its own, it'll get behind walls to a degree, and we have ways of pumping it into the walls. We get it into attics, crawl spaces. People who are really sensitive to mold have even, they're moving out of a moldy environment. They'll say, "Hey, we're moving into a new house. Can you come fog our new house with our moldy possessions in it?"
Oh, hon, I'm never going into a house without having you guys fog it first. Ever.
Yeah.
Ever. Like ever.
Well, and I want to point out what Jeremy just said is some people will go into a new house, but they'll put their moldy possessions in it. And I recommended, look, you moved out of your moldy house, all your stuff's still moldy, and so you need to have them you need to have them fog your moldy possessions so that you can clean that up before you move into your house, because otherwise you just took the mold with you.
Right. And I think, like, if I could make a personal request, could you target the hotels? I'm just going to say. Because, especially with those HVAC units that they have, those wall units, some of those, they're just really nasty. It's like it's a haven for mold. I'm going to run a couple quick commercials real quick since I'm 5 minutes behind, but we're going to come back and we're going to talk more about that. Here, we'll just do this.
With a Place of Peace pop-up from Susan Essentials, you are able to increase productivity, mental acuity, leaving you with higher energy and peace in just 20 minutes. We pop up at our office or yours.
So that's the Place of Peace pop-up, I'm just going to say. Pretty nice.
Susan Essentials leads you to wellness by giving you access to more than 20,000 sustainably produced nutritional products delivered direct to your door.
I'm Beata, your holistic life coach. These days, it's more important than ever to work on your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. Are you consciously breathing deeply in stressful moments? Do you have a plan or daily routine to maintain balance in your awesome body? Are you struggling to be disciplined in your eating habits? When you partner with me, I'll help you develop a personalized health plan that works for your particular lifestyle. You can find out more about me at yourholisticlifecoach.com, where you can also review my 3-step protocol to guide you to abundant health. That's yourholisticlifecoach.com, and I'm Beata.
So we are back with the Blog Talk Radio, the Female Solution Self Care. We have myself, Jody Susan, with Susan Essentials, Jeremy Evans with Pure Maintenance, and Dr. Jeff Wright. And I want to, focus on. There's so much to talk about this mold, but I mean, when you think about Jeremy, tell me the most like dramatic story that you've had when you're working with clients, and the impact. You were talking about the one woman who used to wake up 25 times a night, right? I'm sure there's like tons of experiences that you can share.
Yeah. Actually, Dr. Wright might be better for this one because so I will say this. So we come in and, Dr. Wright said, you've got to get rid of the mold, then you've got to get it out of your body. So I see several every month where there's an instantaneous response. They call and they're like, yeah, I can, my rash went away, or, whatever my symptoms are went away, or they've reduced drastically. In fact, there was another lady I was talking to yesterday. Yeah, a lot of your nasal drip and a lot of your allergic responses went away immediately. Well, there's also a portion of those who are really sick that's just the first step. And it takes someone like Dr. Wright or another physician or practitioner who's trained in detoxing the mold out of your system before people see responses. And I know, Dr. Wright, maybe you could share a couple of the more dramatic ones you've seen. And usually the more dramatic ones are the ones that take a little longer. Like, okay, I've got to detox and get this out of my system. Do you have any big ones coming to mind, Dr. Wright?
Oh, several. I worked with somebody yesterday who called me in a fit of terror of, all this bad stuff was happening. She had all these diagnoses, but when she started getting shocks, like burning electric shocks into her feet, and that really got her attention. Like, something is wrong, and my doctors don't know what to do with this. And, and I've got thyroid problems and hormone problems and, a laundry list of problems and symptoms. And she was a nut. I'd say she's a self-prescribed or described health nut. So she's trying to do everything right, and she's still having all these symptoms. And so when I finally got her to stop so I could ask her some questions, I said, "Where's your mold?" And she said,
right?
She said, "Mold." I said, "Yeah, you have mold in your home." And she said, "Well, there is this spot in my bedroom," but I said, "Well, you need to get out," because she was renting. She couldn't. So she was trying to deal with, all the things of having 3 kids, and 2 of them are a set of twins that are 2 years old. So she's a busy mom and trying to start her business and all these other things. And so she called the landlord, and the landlord sent over a guy who cut a hole in the ceiling and aerosolized all this mold. And the guy was, his English wasn't super great. And he said, "Oh, no, believe me, it's okay. It's okay." And I was like, "And where did he get his mold training from? Where did he get his medical license? It is not okay." And so I said, "You can wipe down hard surfaces, take them with you, but all soft stuff can't go with you. Like, you can't take your bed with you," because having a dry fog in her house wasn't really an option due to her place in life, again, money. And so she was able to find another place, and she was able to move out, and she wiped down everything. And so this was last August, September. So fast forward 6 months, 2 months ago, she called me again. "I'm getting the electric shocks again. What's going on?" And I said, and she said, "Well, I think there's a mold spot on this hard surface." I said, "It's got to go."
And here's what people don't get, Dr. Wright, and we're having, and we have a personal issue with this right now. And we do have a caller coming in, 708-677, and we will get your call in just a couple minutes. And then for other people who want to call in, the number is 515-605-9325. Again, 515-605-9325. So people don't understand that when you have mold that you can visually see. Let me ask you a question. Does it mean it's only there, or is it now all over the place?
Yes.
Yes and yes?
Yes. So you asked earlier at the very beginning of the show, well, how can you avoid mold? Because it's pretty much everywhere. And I agree. Mold is everywhere. Molds and fungus and yeasts are the things that recycle our planet. So if you walk out into the woods and you see a tree that fell over, what's on it? Mold and fungus and spores. It's the thing that digests it and breaks it down so it can get recycled. I'm a huge fan. It's a great thing. The problem is when mold does not have competition, it gets in your house and starts to grow. It wants to keep its foothold, and so it grows and produces different kinds of biotoxins, which are toxic to us. Those biotoxins hurt us, but the mold can too.
What do you mean it doesn't have competition? What does that mean?
Well, our country has competition from like China and Mexico and Canada and France and Germany, and we have competition in business. We have competition in, military and so on. And so we build ourselves up in business to compete with our competitors. Mold, it doesn't want to be eaten by its competition. There's things that eat mold, and so it wants to produce things to defend itself.
Like oregano, clove, right?
Yeah. So plants will produce an essential oil, for example, broccoli. If you allow it to be stressed, meaning you don't spray it with pesticides, so bugs eat it, broccoli is going to defend itself against pests by producing something that's really strong. Some people can taste that, therefore they don't like broccoli. But stressed broccoli, aka organic broccoli that wasn't sprayed, is going to produce a lot more sulforaphane and other compounds that are going to protect it from bugs. It's kind of like its natural pesticide that protects it from bugs, but that natural pesticide happens to be a very powerful anti-cancer thing in us. So mold is going to produce things biotoxins to protect it from its competitors that might want to eat it or crowd it out, and so it makes biotoxins to defend itself. And so the question that got us here was, is it just where you see it, or is it further? Well, if it's drywall manufacturing actually has spores in it because they take wood and grind it up into paper. And so there's actually spores in all drywall. So if you have a home with drywall in it, you have a potential for mold as soon as that gets warm and wet. Which is why, but it takes 3 to 5 days for that to grow. And so if you dry it out really quickly, you might be fine. But mold is, once it's there, it's going to grow wherever there's fuel, which is more drywall, and to some degree gypsum. And so ultimately it can get inside the wall. And if you have the flood inside the wall and don't know about it, it will be growing there happily and you won't know it.
Okay, so thank you. And I'm sorry, I'm just like smiling because you mentioned one of my favorite things, sulforaphane. So, and broccoli. Talk to us about mustard seed powder.
I like mustard seed powder too. I can't talk about as much as mustard seed powder as much as I can talk about broccoli. But
well, in conjunction with broccoli, do you know this trick? Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay, I'll take the stage for a second. So if you want to increase your sulforaphane, first of all, you have to cut your broccoli and let it sit for 40 minutes.
Yep.
However, if you don't have that time, you can actually sprinkle your broccoli, because we were just exposed to mold actually 2 weeks ago, hence my speaking issues. I'm doing a detox. So this is a symptom of mold, people. Talking over yourself and your tongue gets twisted, that's a symptom. So when you sprinkle mustard seed powder on your broccoli or any other cruciferous vegetable, it will increase the sulforaphane in that vegetable, in that cruciferous vegetable. If you want to learn more about that, go to nutritionfacts.org, which is Dr. McGregor, where I had studied holistic nutrition. So it's a nice little trick because most of us don't want to wait 40 minutes to cook our food. So there's a sprinkle on the mustard seed powder. So the other thing that you mentioned is that you can't heal where you became sick when you're referring to the mold, right? But I also want to, because I always talk about the psychological impacts of all this. And we have another caller, 779-801. Let's just take this caller. My thought can wait. Let's just see what this guy has to say. Good morning. Welcome to the Female Solution Blog Talk Radio. This is Jody with Self Cell Care. What's your name and why are you calling?
Grand Rising. This is Maika. How's everyone? Thank you so much for the show.
Good morning, Maika.
Good morning.
What's your question?
Thank you so much for the show. You know, I've been exposed to mold at least 3 or 4 times in my life. But recently, I was given some clothes, and I didn't know that they had been in a moldy basement, and I put it on. This was last year, and I got a mold. I got I got a rash on my neck. Didn't know what it was at first, and then realized finally when I found out that the clothes was in the basement, and the basement was moldy, that it was mold. So I started working on it. It seemed like it went away. And then this spring, this rash came back on my neck. So I've been working to get rid of it. I've been using a lotion of, anyway, I can't think of it right now. Anyway, are you saying that sulfur will get rid of mold? Did I hear you say that? Because I just found my sulfur powder. I've been using like
Jeremy,
colloidal silver, colloidal copper.
Are you talking about, Maika? Are you talking about mold in the home or mold in the body? Or both?
I'm saying mold got on my body and created a rash. I'm asking how to get rid of the rash that comes from mold. It's a mole on my neck, a mole rash.
Dr. Jeff, right?
Is that clear now?
Yes, thank you. Dr. Jeff Wright, if you would share with Maika what your thoughts are, and know that she's not a patient, so we're not diagnosing and all that other good stuff, right? So there we go.
So to be clear, I'll give you a simple answer, but the answer is actually a lot more complicated than this. So if you put on clothes that had mold and you got a rash, removing the clothes and washing them a couple of times in baking soda and in really hot water will usually remove the mold from the clothing. And if the rash the rash should go away once the exposure is done. Contact dermatitis, if you stop touching the thing that's giving you the rash, it should go away. If it doesn't go away, then you need to do something to detoxify the mold and or make sure that there wasn't something else that was missed that also could be contributing to the rash. Like I've known a number of patients that got rashes from food, and the rash didn't go away until they eliminated the food. So it's as simple as wash the clothes in baking soda and hot water a couple of times. That will usually get rid of the mold. And if the rash still doesn't go away, there's something else that's bugging you.
And Jeremy.
Okay, question again. One more question. Does sulfur kill mold?
No.
Weren't you saying that you wanted to bring out the sulfuric?
So sulforaphane is a compound that's in broccoli that helps cells be healthy, but that's just a side note. That doesn't remediate mold and won't get it out of your body.
How about charcoal, activated charcoal?
Charcoal is one of the binders that helps to pull mold out. Yes. It's specific for certain types of mold, not all of them. So it's best to know which mold you have to know for certain if charcoal is going to remove it. But you can start with that and see if you get a change. Very safe.
Mm-hmm. Very safe. Okay, great. Thank you, and thank you so much. Mold is really a problem, and it does have to be eradicated. So thank you so much for being in this battle to expose people to the information and have developed methods for eliminating it. It's a growing problem.
You're welcome. So, Maika, if you are looking for someone to eradicate mold in the home, Pure Maintenance has a fantastic technology that's so cost effective. It's crazy, in my opinion, crazy cheap. And I'd like for Jeremy to, I'm going to mute you because I seem to have a feedback on yours. So hold on. Here we go. So Jeremy, can you talk about the spikes that are left after the fogging process?
Yeah, so we talk about the Pure Maintenance, and it's a patented process, by the way. After we kind of refined our protocols, we've got patents on the machine, on the process. And it's essentially a two-step process is kind of how we simplify it. The first step is, you showed that nice picture of how really foggy it can get. The first step is where we denature or get, kill the mold in a sense. And that's the bulk of a treatment. If we were to come into your home and do our dry fog treatment, you can anticipate, it depends on the size of the home, but you can anticipate 4 to 5 hours. And the bulk of that time is the first phase. I mean, it's getting rid of the mold. It's killing the mold. It's filling it up with that fog and vapor. And there's a whole process just to that first step. Well, after a couple of years of doing that, we realized we need to provide a residual protection for our patients, because people would ask us, well, are you going to have to come back every 6 months or 3 months, to do our home? And as long as you stay on top of, like Dr. Wright said, if you find any water issues, if you just jump on them quickly, for the most part, you can keep the mold, what we call the mold load on a home, relatively low. any home, I'll say though, over time and over years of having a little toilet, leak there, here, a flood there, or a spill here and there. I mean, the mold load on homes just creep up over time. Like there's no, I don't want to say there's no way to avoid it, but pretty much every old home has poor air quality, in my opinion. 90+%. You get to the 60s and 50s as far as older homes, and when I do air quality testing, they almost all have really poor, black mold often, or just really high counts, unhealthily high counts. So anyways, we stumbled across a really nice product, EPA registered product that you can, at the very end, after we've essentially killed all the mold and sterilized every square inch of the home, we use the same technology, and we coat virtually every surface in the home, and even possessions like couches, cabinets, bedding, whatever we can see, we'll essentially coat it with an antimicrobial agent that, like you said, Jody, mechanically what it looks like is you're putting billions and trillions of spikes on the surfaces of everyone's home. And what these spikes do, they have a positive charge to them. And, anything, microbes, mold, fungus has a negative charge. So there's a little bit of a law of attraction going on there, where not only if, they're kind of drawn to those surfaces, and when the mold spore lands on the surface, it basically pierces it and renders it dead or inert. So that's kind of the second step of the process. And it's really awesome. We have customers that can just have one treatment, and that'll last them a long, long time, because we leave that residual protection on all of the surfaces. And it's also non-toxic, also really safe. Once it bonds, it basically forms a covalent bond to whatever we put it on. And so it ain't coming off unless you scrub it off with some abrasion or sandpaper or something like that. So it provides a nice long-term residual protection. Mold, it doesn't give mold the luxury of just, the spores bouncing around indefinitely until they find some water or moisture or nutrition that they can then start growing again. The mold spore, as soon as it lands, it dies. And so that's kind of the two-step process in a nutshell.
Well, and that creates a lot of psychological safety, in my opinion, for people to, feel comfortable going into their own home, not being sick. If you're a business and you are using Pure Maintenance in your business, it gives your clients psychological safety to walk into your business and to know that they're not going to get sick from whatever it is that's lurking there. And the thing is, most people can't, just because you can't see the mold doesn't mean that it's not there. We have electricity. You can't actually see the electricity unless you have your lights on, and still you're not seeing the electricity, you're seeing the light, right? So, so you need to, I think, be aware of I think it's important to have some self-awareness about how you feel every single day, and compare that. I mean, we don't want to really be comparing ourselves to other people, but in this sense, I think you do, because if your normal is that of depression and headache and aches and pains, know that there's another opportunity out there for you, and you don't have to feel that way. For me, coming back from Michigan, where we were exposed to a lot of mold for 10 days, I'm doing the activated charcoal, I'm doing the clove, I'm doing the oregano, and it's not a one-hit wonder. I mean, you can't just do that. I mean, there's so much more to do, but I'm just telling you, for self-care, there's a lot of things that you can do. We use frequency healing too to bring homeostasis back to the body, but it's not cookie cutter. So you need to see a doctor like Dr. Wright, who can take you from, point A to point Z, quite frankly, because it's not going to be A to B.
Mm-mm.
You get to go through the alphabet. Is that right, Dr. Wright?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, you get to go through the alphabet. And I've done this for myself before. So and I do know that there are different plants that will work better on different molds. Is that right? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Can you share a little bit about that?
Yes, I can. I'm looking at the reference on where I found this because I want to give the guy who did it, who really has done. There's a group of a pharmacist and a couple of doctors who got together and did they figured out which binders bonded to which things. It used to be initially the binders had to do with it was basically just two binders that were medications. One was called cholestyramine, and that worked, but or Welcall. And Dr. Shoemaker only used those. Then there's a number of other of us who aren't right in the limelight, and we've added some other things to it. And so ultimately, if you go to a book written by Dr. Neil Nathan, and I'm looking up the name of the book and I can't find it.
Heal Your Body from Mold Toxicity, Lyme Disease, multiple.
Yep, that's the one.
Got it. I'm like, boom, boom, boom.
Yep. And so, and in his book, he talks about the binders, the other binders that work, and this charcoal binds to specific things. Chlorella binds to different biotoxins.
Spirulina too, is that right?
Spirulina, yes.
So I'm going to share the book. Hold on, just so people can see. So, for those that are watching, Toxic, Heal Your Body from Mold Toxicity, Lyme Disease, Multiple Chemical Sensitivities, that was me, and Chronic Environmental Illness. Now, I will say that I do a test, oopsie daisy, hold on a second, we want to stop that screen share. So I do a test that identifies chemical and food sensitivities. I'm sure you probably do as well, Dr. Wright.
Yes.
I use Cell Science out of Florida, and it really helps people to visually see and identify very quickly which foods are causing sensitivities in the body.
Yep.
And I have a belief based in traditional Chinese medicine that a lot of our sensitivities are rooted in our trauma. So when we have trauma and then we're eating foods, our body starts to see that food as a predator. And I know that there's different food for thought. So
yes.
Dr. Wright, what are your thoughts on that?
I like Cell Science. They have a good, solid, spot-on lab that gives people an idea of what things they could be reacting. People talk about allergies like, oh, I got itchy eyes and itchy, watery, sneezy nose. Those are classical allergies. Or I have anaphylaxis. Those are worst case. Same system, same process that's happening with anaphylaxis as seasonal allergies. But you can also have an allergic or sensitivity reaction, which is a different immune process, but it still makes you miserable. But it can have any number of other symptoms that aren't necessarily associated with the welts or the rash that you just got because you touched something or because you breathed in something. And so Cell Science does a good job. There's a few other labs that I've used as well. It can be a finger stick or a blood test or that is looking for other immune complexes to those foods. And it just gives you a great idea. Hey, I might be reacting to the egg white or the egg yolk or gluten or a different part of the gluten molecule that's not gluten.
Gliadin, yeah.
Yep, gliadin. Yep. So many practitioners will run these tests so that you can further diagnose. And there's simple ways of doing that as well that are, to give you an idea, hey, am I reacting to that? I first learned that I started reacting to wheat, of all things, because my fingers itched and I got really sick and stopped eating everything. And my wonderful wife was pounding broth in me, and I didn't want to eat that either. But interesting, for those 2 weeks that I was really sick, I stopped eating everything and my rash went away. And then when I started eating everything, my rash came back. Well, my scientific mind said, I think maybe what I'm eating is causing this rash. And it still took me a few years before I'd admit to it, but that's just my personal problem, not everybody else's.
Well, so I mean, you make a really good point. I'm going to share a portion of my health journey. So I lost 92 pounds, 45 pounds. The first 45 pounds I lost using an essential oil blend. And I don't recommend that you just go out and do this because you need to know your body. Okay. Because everybody's body does this the same way. So I use this essential oil. It's called Slim and Sassy. And I actually didn't use it for 6 months because of the name. It kind of aggravated me because I just felt it was inauthentic. But then I looked at the ingredients and it had ginger. These are all anti-inflammatories: ginger, grapefruit peel, lemon peel, cinnamon, which regulates your blood sugar levels, peppermint. And so when I looked at it, I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm just going to get over the name and I'm going to try it. So I put it in a veggie cap and I took it that way. And because you really don't want to just put that in water and drink it because, just do that. Okay, so we can talk about it offline. But and I lost 45 pounds. But as I was losing all this weight, I was also taking tons of vitamins and I was told to double up. Bad advice. Really bad advice. And so I was doubling up on all this stuff. And guess what, people? Because I'm going through trauma, right? I ended up with 160 different food and chemical sensitivities. And I'm having hives. So I lost 45 pounds. But then I did the sensitivity test. And I literally didn't have underwear to wear because the weight dropped off in a month, like the rest of the 45 pounds. And the reason it dropped off, and which caused the problem, by the way. And I didn't do it intentionally. I just ate the things that were on my acceptable foods to eat list. But my body was so happy not having inflammation that the weight dropped. I mean, like it literally peeled off and my underwear is at my ankles. I mean, it's just like, crazy. So I didn't not eat. I actually ate a ton and I didn't starve myself. I just found out which foods were not inflammatory for my specific concerns. And, but it was a long journey of health because now I reversed all of those sensitivities using frequency healing. I can eat anything I want as long as that food is free of pesticides and chemicals, often described as organic, although food does not need to be organic for it to be okay to eat. It just needs to not have pesticides and chemicals and things like that. So I just wanted to share that because I think that's a repetitive situation. And if anybody wants to learn more about that, there was a show done on this, through us. It's called, well, if anybody wants information, it was on Cell Science. And we had Amy, who's the head of nutrition, Amy Pizarka, on the show. And she explained all about that test. So for people who are looking for that. We actually have to go to commercial again. We're just going to do a quick short one. Just because we're at 8:38 and seem to be here. We'll just do this.
Susan Essentials is re-engineering what health looks like by leading you to the best wellness initiatives in the world. Start your coaching plan today and create a new paradigm of health. Click here to learn more. Hi, I'm Jody Susan with Susan Essentials. I started Susan Essentials in 2015 because of a personal health journey. I was over-medicated and put on 19 different medications. And yes, I reversed all my chronic diseases using plant and energy-based healing. It was amazing. At Susan Essentials, we support both consumers and businesses, and we do that with helping your employees or yourself with a food as medicine mindset. How Susan Essentials supports businesses and consumers is we teach people about a food as medicine mindset. So we support people on how to support their own immune system, how to support their brain health, how to support their emotional well-being. And we do that all with plant and an energy-based healing.
Okay, so we have a caller, 847-220. We're going to bring you on. So what's your name and where are you calling from? Upstairs?
My name's Andrew, and I've listened to most of the broadcast. I'm glad to hear you guys because I really believe strongly in what you do. I may have missed this in what you said. I know it's true, but I want you to explain it a little bit to the audience. Because I share a lake house with my family, and I got mold in the lake house. And one of the issues they had was, well, okay, if you have this treatment done, we're going to have to do it all the time. And I said, well, you're going to have to do it probably again, but it's never been done. And actually, I think it lasts a long time. I've heard it could be anywhere from 14 to 18 months as far as keeping mold out of the house at bay, as well as other nasty things in the house. Can you talk a little bit about how long your treatment lasts based upon your research and based upon other treatments you've done?
Great question, Andrew. Jeremy, you want to take that?
Yeah. So I did kind of answer that. If you think about how mold forms in a home, it needs just a couple of things. So it needs water, it needs nutrition, and it needs oxygen, but you're never going to get rid of oxygen. So nutrition, which every home is made of plentiful nutrition, as Dr. Wright mentioned, sheetrock and things like that are just the favorites of mold. So it really comes down to water management, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So there's lots of little things. Basically, if you can stay on top of water management, you can keep the mold load in your home and keep mold issues at a minimum. So I like to think we can come in and kill all the mold in your house, and we actually do a pretty thorough drain treatment and windowsill treatment. Anywhere we think water pools up or is found in a home, we kind of pay some special attention to those areas when we do a dry fog treatment. And so it really comes down to maintaining your home from a water perspective. So, I mentioned earlier, if anything does leak, I mean, even something as simple as like a cup of water spills in my living room, you really ought to jump on that. You can't just let it sit. No, it'll dry out. Mold will start forming in that, and that'll start sending out some spores in the air, and then those will, find a sink or a drain, or oftentimes our washing machines, the front-loading washers that have this, they're notorious for just housing tons of mold. They don't breathe well, and they have a seal that just loves to trap moisture and mold. So
really?
The real issue is jump on any water concern that you can think of. Have your sprinklers checked regularly, yearly. Check your gutters. When those gutters get clogged up, they'll overflow and they'll just pool right at the base of your house, and they can get into your house. Make sure your sprinklers aren't, spraying on your house. I'm trying to think of some of the other maintenance.
How long does it last typically? I think that's one of the things that Andrew was asking.
What's that?
How long does your dry fogging last? I think that was one of his questions.
With the second step, where we add the residual, hopefully it will last you a lifetime if you stay on top of, making sure you manage water concerns in your home. I guess that was my point. Stay on top of making sure water doesn't get into your home, and you should be good. Now, if you have a flood and a pipe break, you're going to have mold probably come back. Things like that happen. But you should be good.
So,
Jeremy, I have a follow-up question for the water issue. I completely understand what you're saying there. It's a beach house, a lake house, so you've got a lot of humidity in the air. And I've talked to the next door neighbor, And the next door neighbor said, I don't know if she had mold remediation at all, but she said, your house is really dry, mine's not. She said she uses two techniques. One of them certainly is a dehumidifier. And yeah, that takes time. She doesn't have one that automatically drains out to a pipe, but she has to, when she's up there, and the family's up there for the 3 months of the summer, they empty it. So I guess that's one way to get the air drier, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, dehumidifiers are great, especially if you're in a humid environment. If you're in the home, obviously our HVAC units, the AC units can be run to keep the house kind of free of moisture, free of humidity. But if you're not going to be there, a dehumidifier actually is a great option. I was going to say bathroom fans is such a small thing that people overlook. If you don't have a bathroom fan and you're showering every day, and that moisture, it only takes a couple of years before you'll see spots it's very common to see spots on your ceiling. That's mold. Oftentimes you can't see the spots in your ceiling, but there's often mold there if you don't have a bathroom fan or a way to dehumidify that. So yeah, I agree with you. Dehumidify is a good way to go.
Any other questions, Andrew?
No, that's it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so the other question that I would pose is that since this home is shut down for, I think, how long, Andrew? 6 months?
6 to 7 months. There's no one there. So the air conditioning, there actually isn't any air conditioning in that house at all. There's some heat, but no AC, so that's not even an option. Fans can be an option, although they're not used. The windows are open, and that just lets more moisture in. I know there are other ways to get humidity out of the air in addition to dehumidifiers, but quite frankly, my family is not using any of those. So I was looking for advice on that particular part of it.
Yeah, that's a good plan.
Well, did you have a question in there, Andrew? It sounded like you might have.
Nope. Well, the question could be, what other ways to get humidity out of the air other than the dehumidifier? And a ceiling fan. I know you mentioned that one, but other than that, what else could there be?
Especially when the house is closed down for 6 months.
Yeah. In your circumstance, I think that's probably the way to go. There's a figure in the mold realm. You want to keep the relative humidity below approximately 45%. Some people say 50. There's a little bit of differing in opinions on that, but you could even buy, Andrew, they have relative humidity sensors you could put into your house, and even nowadays they can integrate with an app. So you could, I don't know if you have Wi-Fi there or something like that, but you could potentially, actually only your phone needs the Wi-Fi, but you could potentially monitor your relative humidity in the home when you're not there, and get a dehumidifier, test it out and see, am I keeping it below 45? Is it going above? And then make adjustments accordingly. A lot of your big industrial dehumidifiers cover spaces, you can get some that cover thousands and thousands of square feet for one dehumidifier. So depending on which kind you get, you could probably service your needs with a dehumidifier and, like you said, some fans. That's my guess.
That's great
I really
answer.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Andrew. So one of the things that we talked about, I just want to we have a few minutes left, and what are some easy steps that people can take at home for their body? If you want to leave people, Dr. Wright, with maybe 3 things that they can do to support, because you say price is an issue, right, for people reclaiming their health. Forgive me, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that I'm going to contradict that. I think it's not price. I think it's mindset.
Well, I think that price, time, and money are never the issue. They're only a measurement of value. So it might be that they don't value their health. It might be they don't value your service. It might be that, yeah. So I agree with you.
Yeah, and because, and the reason I say this, and I'm not trying to be confrontational at all, is that I was disabled for 3.5 years, and I found a way to get a water filtration system to toss all the food that was in my pantry, because I wanted my health more than I wanted anything else in the world. And so I want to just put out there that if you really want your health, consider your mindset.
Yep.
Okay. If you want to learn about mindset, you can go to the YouTube channel and key in Dr. John Demartini. And Dr. John Demartini talks all about mindset, and you can and I trained under him for a while, and you can shift your mindset such that you won't let excuses stop you from being and creating what you want for your life. It may look like making a request for money to get to see someone like Dr. Wright, or to get to have your home fogged by Pure Maintenance. It might be what I did. I went to a food pantry and they had some organics. So I got some of my organics from a food pantry. I am not proud. I wanted my health. So the question you need to ask yourself, what are you willing to sacrifice to have your health? And I'll give you a list of what I sacrificed. Pride, ego. I sacrificed internet. I didn't sacrifice internet, excuse me. I sacrificed TV. Okay, so I got rid of TV. I couldn't afford it. I wanted health. So these are the choices that you make when you check out at the grocery store. What impulse buys are there that you're buying that you actually don't need? And let me tell you that when you start looking at all these things that aren't really serving your highest self, affording Dr. Wright, affording Pure Maintenance, affording the organic apple versus the conventional apple is all in reach. So I believe in mindset. You may make an excuse for money. You can make an excuse for time. You can make an excuse for anything that you want, but it won't get you from point A to Z.
I tell people that excuses are like armpits. Everyone has them, and they often stink.
That's better than what I'm saying, and I'm going to take that from you. Yeah, I don't believe in excuses. Don't come to an excuse to me. Come with a solution. You can apologize, right, and then come with a solution, and then do it different. But if you keep on doing the same thing and expecting a different result, that's the definition of insanity. Thank you, Einstein. Okay. Anybody else got anything we got to say? Because we got like 2 more minutes. We're going to wrap her up. Any last words of wisdom? Jeremy, any last words of wisdom?
I would just say in conclusion, the connection cut out in the beginning, but I've been so surprised to see how many homes actually have kind of an unhealthy environment from a mold perspective. I didn't go into air quality testing as much as I wanted to at the beginning, but it's very common for me to see someone sick from mold and the air quality test looked clean.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty common. And so a lot of my mold inspections, I'm interviewing the customer, kind of like Dr. Wright does. What are your symptoms? I'm not a practitioner, but as a good mold remediator, I need to know the basics of health and mold. So I interview them about their health. Are you better? Do you feel better when you're out of the house than when you're in the house? What are the symptoms? I know the basic symptoms. are there smells? Have you had a water leak or water damage? I kind of interview the customer as well as my visual inspection, and I piece it together to say, okay, you probably have we should probably consider fogging your home as a solution, as at least part of your journey into getting your health back. So my conclusion is, if you suspect in the very least that you're, because of the history of your home, some water things, or, you feel better when you're not in the home. That's not always 100%. I mean, a lot of people get so sick that it doesn't matter where they are, in or out of the home. But I would connect with, a qualified mold professional. Pure Maintenance, like I said, we have offices all over the U.S. now, and maybe have them come out and see. And I'd consider, even if, honestly, I mean, it's easy for me to say because I work here and I can fog my own house for free, essentially. But I think it's wise. I've even heard Dr. Wright say similar things. I mean, get your home fogged, it definitely won't hurt. Every home's going to have some mold in it to a degree. And I think getting the home fogged and cleaned of mold is just a fantastic way to help on your journey back to health. So.
Thank you. And Dr. Wright, what are the words of wisdom that you have for people regarding this?
We talked a little bit about acute medicine. Let's put that aside for a moment. When it comes to chronic disease and or optimal health, it takes time and work and money, and everything you expect, you have to put in something to get what you expect. So in my experience, in my 20 plus years in medicine, I found that if you're going after chronic reversal of chronic disease, you have to start with the foundation, which is everything that you do without thinking about it. You have to start with your living environment, where you eat, sleep, breathe, and you have to look at each of those components. And so if you have mold in your home, everything that you're doing is going to be worsened because you're being exposed when you eat, when you sleep, when you shower, when you shave, when you're working on the computer. So your environment is not building health, it's taking health. And so at the foundation of chronic disease, you have to deal with the foundation of what you do every day, lifestyle, living environment, and so on. And so for the patients that I got from Pure Maintenance, that's not how I tried to get patients, but the patients I got from Pure Maintenance who had already gone through the mold remediation, they'd already gone through that, they were far simpler to manage and help to get well because they were living in a home that was safer. So I agree with Jeremy. You can't go wrong if you suspect you have mold, if you even have a hint that you've had mold, either in a previous home that you brought stuff with you or a current home where you've had water damage or a flood or something looks or smells suspicious, get it fogged. It can make a huge difference in moving you towards a better state of health.
Yeah, and I want to just kind of tie up with this, what I don't think most people are aware. When you are exposed like to black mold, it goes for your weakest link, right?
Mm-hmm.
It shuts off your activated immune system. It wakes up all those viruses that we all have in our body. I'm not talking about anything in the news. I'm just talking about we all may have viruses in our body. They're just dormant. So,
90 seconds.
So it's going to wake those up and make you susceptible to new infection. So it's kind of like the analogy of a prison door. The electrical system fails and all the bad guys get out of jail. Just saying. So consider that your environment will drive how you feel. And consider that you have two experts on this show
60
today.
seconds.
And we're going to go to the ending, but we have two experts here. So if you need to get in touch with them, you can reach out at 847-738-0242. Susan Essentials, and I will connect you with Dr. Jeff Wright. And Jeff, if you want to send me your information on how people can connect with you, I will post that. Jeremy, I've already posted yours. So.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for having us. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Likewise. Sorry about all the technology issues in first thing, but
Yeah, my bad.
Oh no, it's not anybody's bad. I mean, we didn't even have internet last night, so there. So. Been like, you just have to kind of go with the flow, because if you're going to get upset about it, it's
10 seconds.
Help anything. So I need to run the thing. Do you want to text me in the private chat what information I should put in the system for you, and what I can share publicly, Dr. Wright?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, and I'll run the closing of the show. So.
We've come to the end of our show today, but you can hear every show in the archives at www.blogtalkradio.com/the-female-solution. You can also hear today's show on the Female Solution Facebook page. Go to www.facebook.com/the-female-solution. Leave your comments about today's show. You can always reach me on my website at www.naimalatif.com. That's www.naimalatif.com. Watch our TV shows, listen to our radio shows, order our books, and be sure to get your copy of the book, The Female Solution. On behalf of our team of radio hosts, I'd like to thank all of you who participated in today's discussion. And to our global family listening from all around the world, we say thank you. To our family in China, Sheshe, India, Zanyaba, Japan, Arigato, Korea, Kamsahamnida, Russia, Spasiba, Germany, Danke, Poland, Dziękuję, France, Merci, Spain, Gracias, Italy, Grazie, Egypt, Shukran, Ghana, Medasi, Nigeria, Eshe, South Africa, Ngiyabonga, Senegal, Jerez, Kenya, Asante, Israel, Toda, Pakistan, Shukriya, Afghanistan, Tashakur, Saudi Arabia, Shukran. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you. And may peace be upon you and the mercy of God and God's blessing.